And next up, we have our rock star deputy organizing directors, Bianca Navarro and Chelsea White-Hoglen. Bianca Navarro is a first-generation Cuban American based in Lake Worth, Florida. Graduating from Florida Atlantic University with a BA in political science, she previously worked as a field organizer for various campaigns and has been serving as a precinct leader in Palm Beach County for 5 years. The youngest serving Latinx precinct leader in her county, she has experience working deeply within her local communities with a focus on intersectionality. Chelsea White-Hoglen serves as one of Vot-ER's deputy organizing directors, overseeing our organizing work in North Carolina and Georgia, in addition to our social work strategy team. Based in Western North Carolina, Chelsea lives their passion as a social work leader with a specialized repertoire focused on community organizing, social policy, and leadership development, specifically in rural populations. Training others is one of her favorite pieces of her work, which is one reason they're thrilled to be co-leading this training today. Together, Bianca and Chelsea will talk about building teams of providers dedicated to civic health at your institution, and we'll run through useful scripts to make it easy. Welcome, Bianca and Chelsea.
Thank you, Leah, for that introduction. And thank you all so much for being here for the second day of our Civic Health Month conference. My name is Bianca, and as a precinct leader, I have organized directly in my community for quite some time. I got started in college, volunteering for various campaigns, and that eventually led me to become a precinct leader, mainly because I knew that outreaching to folks in my neighborhood shouldn't only happen when there's an election around the corner. As a precinct leader, the work never stops. It's not cyclical, it's an ongoing effort to mobilize, inform, and connect with my community. But if I'm being honest, I would not be able to continue doing that kind of work if I don't have a strong team around me. Together, we share ideas, support each other, motivate each other, and we cover a lot more ground working as a team as opposed to if it was just me knocking on doors or making calls myself. So that is why I am so excited to join Chelsea to share a little bit about how you all could start building teams at your institutions, because you all just heard from some incredible speakers on why this work is so important. But what we know is that this kind of work is easier when you have a team on your side. When you find allies within your institution and are all connected to each other, you can build out a team that helps expand this vital work, but also creates a foundation that allows for the work to be sustainable. And overall, it does just kind of make doing the work a little more fun. So I want to start this segment by really painting a picture on how far team building could go. Now, this is just one example, but I want you all to take the bits and pieces that you see working for you and your institution so that you could all successfully build out teams. So with that, let's get started with some really good case study. Okay, so to start, I want to take us back in time, way back, before even my time at Vot-ER, so far back in the past to the year 2021. Yes, I know, far back to last year. And the location I'm taking you to is Tampa, Florida, to the University of South Florida, or USF. So I'm taking us back in time to 2021 to look at two Vot-ER celebrities a little bit before they were Vot-ER celebrities. Some of you may have heard their names before, and if we're lucky, they're in the audience here today. I think Dr. Caputo is, so this is going to be a surprise for her. I'll be talking about Assistant Professor of Internal Medicine at USF, Dr. Jennifer Caputo Seidler, an Assistant Professor of Internal Medicine and Pediatrics, Dr. Manal Asen, two incredible doctors working at USF, and also two incredible doctors that were and are extremely passionate about civic health and civic engagement. So back in time, both these doctors heard about Vot-ER's work and decided to apply for Vot-ER's 2021 Civic Health Fellowship Program. Vot-ER's Civic Health Fellowship is a course designed for nurses, physicians, medical students, social workers, and other health professionals who want to make a bigger impact in their communities. The fellowship teaches folks a lot of different ways to help knock down the walls between healthcare and civic engagement. So both Dr. Asen and Dr. Caputo heard about this fellowship and realized that this was the right place for them to plug in if they wanted to get serious about integrating civic engagement into their work life. They both signed up for our 2021 course, and originally they didn't even know that the other was applying, even though they worked together, which was a pleasant surprise for them and a magical moment for the future of Vot-ER. Together, they were able to join forces during the fellowship and create an extremely strong 2-person USF team. So taking the tools, tips, and tricks that they learned during the Civic Health Fellowship, they knew how vital building out teams were if they really wanted to make a huge impact. So one way they started building out a team was by having one-on-ones with other faculty members. One-on-ones are fundamental to getting a team started, and I know Chelsea is going to break down what a one-on-one is and why it is so integral to our work for you all in a bit. But how Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin were able to really expand the reach was by presenting during various grand rounds at USF Morosani College of Medicine. Using grand rounds as an opportunity to speak on the social determinants of health and community, social, and economic factors that impact the health of their patients, and to introduce Vot-ER's work to colleagues. They talk to colleagues on how voting is a powerful tool to address the needs of patients that doesn't include straightforward medicine, and how they could use a Vot-ER badge to make a difference too. So using Vot-ER's pre-made presentations as a template that they made their own, they continued and still continue to give grand rounds presentations to help spread the word on the importance of civic health. So please try to follow along with the graphics that are on the next couple of slides I'm going to show you. It is actually a visual representation of their team building process, and will show a variation of what a snowflake model of organizing looks like. So the snowflake model replaces a single leader in a team structure with interconnected leaders. But apologies in advance if this is a lot to follow visually. But back to the case study. At the end of grand rounds presentations, Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin would ask colleagues to order their own Vot-ER badge. And it worked. I pretty much could tell anytime these two did a grand rounds presentations, because we'd see an influx of badge orders coming right from Tampa. And I would say to myself, oh, that must be Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin giving another one of their incredible presentations. So they continue to have one-on-ones, give grand rounds presentations, and that eventually gave way to create multiple outlying teams. So working within the internal med department, they made a team, presenting to the pediatrics department that eventually would become its own team, and so on. But what I did not foresee was that they had spread the word so much and built out so many other teams that when new teams would pop up, these new teams sometimes were an extension of another new team and didn't necessarily come directly from Dr. Austin and Dr. Caputo. So for example, a doctor from the family medicine department had their own presentation to students about Vot-ER, which led to a med student that works at one of USF clinics, Tampa Bay Street Medicine, to build out her own team. She applied for Vot-ER's Community Civic Health Grant Program, and now Tampa Bay Street Medicine stands as its own team, but was totally birthed out of the initial presentations that came from Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin. So it's kind of like a team inception. And now my theory is wrong. When multiple badge orders from Tampa happen in a day, sometimes it is from Dr. Austin and Dr. Caputo, but now it could also be from other team captains in other departments having one-on-ones or giving presentations that Dr. Austin and Dr. Caputo might not even know about. So a very similar situation happened most recently with our newest USF team for the Healthy Democracy Campaign. For those of you who don't know, the Healthy Democracy Campaign is an annual voter registration drive competition between medical schools and other healthcare education programs. So we had a USF med student sign up to be captain for our Healthy Democracy Campaign. She ordered 100 badges. And when I met with her right after she had signed up to be captain, I said, oh, I'm so excited to see USF joining the competition this year because you all do such incredible work already. We've seen so many badge orders and voter registrations come from USF. And of course, Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin must be really, really happy to see USF on the roster of competing schools this year. Did you attend one of their presentations? What made you sign up to be captain? And then she says to me, I actually have no idea who they are. It was another professor that had talked to other med students about Vot-ER, and they mentioned the Healthy Democracy Campaign you guys were doing. And I loved the idea. And I went to your website, learned a little bit more, and signed up. So again, a new team had formed, not directly from our core team, but still as an extension of it. Our USF Healthy Democracy team would not exist had it not been for Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin doing the absolute most vast groundwork to make it possible for all these extra new teams to pop up. So what Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin did was turn a snowflake into a snowball that turned into an avalanche. Separately, they were each snowflakes joining forces during the Civic Health Fellowship. Then they had one-on-ones, did a few presentations to join forces with more colleagues to build out a team or a snowball that eventually led to a swell of folks getting involved in this work, ordering their own Vot-ER voter registration badges, and creating an avalanche that is a movement of incredible doctors and med students fighting to advocate for their patients and for their communities. So when I found out my HTC captain didn't know Dr. Caputo, the first thing I did was connected them with each other. I knew my newest team captain would get the best advice and best support from our most veteran team captain. And together they worked on planning and strategizing so that our new USF Healthy Democracy campaign team could have a really successful run. So that picture on the right is myself, Dr. Caputo, and USF's Healthy Democracy campaign captain at an in-person launch that they organized together, and I was lucky enough to attend and present at. And after our presentation, we handed out a bunch of badges to eager med students who are now joining forces to help get folks registered to vote in their communities and their school. So who knows how many more new teams will eventually come from it after the campaign is over. The USF case study is a perfect example of how we are stronger when we do this work in teams. And when we do this work in teams, we have the ability to expand the movement exponentially. All in all, it was a full circle moment for my USF team, from grand rounds presentations from Dr. Caputo and Dr. Austin to in-person Healthy Democracy campaign launches. There are so many unique ways to build out teams, and this case study was just one really big example on the different ways that it can be done. Team building does not necessarily have to look like this or be this large, but no matter how big or how small a team might be, the absolute first step and the oil that keeps a team moving and growing is a one-on-one. So with that being said, I think this is the perfect moment for me to pass it over to an incredible organizer and an amazing human being that I get to call my teammate and my friend Chelsea, so that she could give you the lowdown on one-on-ones and presentations. So thank you all for listening to my USF case study and sitting through those kind of hard to follow graphics. But I hope you were all able to take a lot from this, and maybe there are some things that you could take back to your institution so you can integrate and build out some teams. So with that, please keep me from rambling on and take it away, Chelsea.
Thank you so much, Bianca. I love that story, and putting this presentation together and hearing that story just got me so jazzed up in the days leading up to this conference. As Bianca's case study of USF illustrates so clearly from the very beginning to the present moment, since it is a case study that is certainly still ongoing and has not ended by any means. But what it made clear is that there are allies to the work of civic health everywhere. Someone said earlier in the chat, we should be more mindful that we should be collaborating across our professions. And that's so true. You can find allies in your own department, like Dr. Caputo and Austin found at the beginning of their story. They may be in other departments. They may be social workers, students, administrators, government relations officers, or something else entirely. They may be students, like the newest team member that helped form a team inside of USF. If they play a role at your institution, they play a role in advancing the civic health of the patients that are served by your institution. So the way that we build teams at our institutions is by finding those allies and connecting them with one another. How do we do that? Exactly like the teams before us did, exactly like USF did, through one-on-ones and presentations. And since I feel like everyone who's in this room has given a presentation at least one time before, chances are the folks here are potentially most intimidated by the idea of a one-on-one. So I thought we would start there. So a one-on-one is an intentional conversation that typically takes place face-to-face, but Zoom totally counts in a pandemic world. And this is a conversation where we talk with a colleague, a peer, or another potential civic health ally. These conversations can happen over our lunch hour, they can happen after a staff meeting, they can happen before work, or really anytime that fits the flow of your day-to-day life. They don't have to be long. And in fact, they can typically only last around 20 to 45 minutes. And the whole purpose of the conversation is, one, to develop deep relationships with committed allies to generate trust and accountability between one another. Two, to better understand the resources, capacity, strengths, and challenges of ourselves and our allies and learn how we can work together. And three, to invite allies to register patients to vote and to otherwise expand the impact of civic health at your institution. There is no A+B=C magical formula to a good one-on-one, but there are some ingredients that you can throw in the mix to ensure that you are on the right track. Those ingredients are actually borrowed from a social work tool that some of you might be familiar with called motivational interviewing. The first ingredient is the collaborative partnership that you form between yourself and your conversation partner. In this partnership, their experiences and their perceptions are honored, regardless of how they may differ from our own. We aren't trying to force, manipulate, or coerce anyone into falling in line with our specific agenda or any agenda that doesn't meet their own goals. Our intention is to collaborate with them if and wherever possible, and to do that so that we can work towards collective goals. The second ingredient is evocation, or this is referring to the aim of eliciting, evoking, drawing out the intrinsic motivation of our conversation partner. I like to refer to this as their self-interest. The idea behind this second ingredient is that each individual has all of the resources and motivation to act within themselves, and that those things are relative to their unique goals, perceptions, and values. And then the third ingredient is autonomy. And this ingredient refers to the inherent respect that we must have for our conversation partner and their capacity and right to self-determination, including their right to choose to take action or not to take action at this moment in time. With these three ingredients, you're going to use your 20 to 45 minutes with a potential ally, and you're going to be able to develop a deep relationship rooted in shared self-interest. You'll have a better understanding of the landscape at your institution in regards to civic health, and you'll be able to invite your conversation partner to take action in a way that makes sense based on their motivation and capacity. And I am about to tell you how. It's easier than it sounds, I promise. A one-on-one can be broken down into three distinct parts from beginning to end of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, the first part is about connection and respect. During those first few minutes together, you're going to want to share your story, the story about why you care about civic health as part of your work and how you came to join this movement of providers. You're probably going to want to use your story as an opportunity to model an example of how your individual actions have contributed to a lasting change when it comes to civic health. You're going to use those first few minutes together to establish that culture of collaborative partnership that I mentioned, which means that you'll also want to invite your conversation partner to share their own story as well. Going back to our secret ingredients in the spirit of autonomy and collaborative partnership, remember to genuinely appreciate their perspective on civic health, even if it isn't identical or even similar to yours. If your one-on-one is only 20 minutes long, that's totally fine. This section would only take about 5 minutes of that, potentially. The bulk of your time together is going to happen during the second part of the meeting, which is dedicated to listening to and empowering your conversation partner. If your one-on-one is 20 minutes long, chances are this part of your conversation is going to be at least 10 of those minutes. Professional community organizers tend to say that a good one-on-one should be around 70% listening and 30% asking questions. This is where you have an opportunity to really draw out their story, asking lots of questions based on what they share in the first part of your meeting. You're looking for pieces of their story that hint at their motivation and worldview. What moves them to act? The main tools in your toolbox for this part of the meeting can be remembered with the acronym OR: open-ended questions, active listening and affirmations, and reflections. You're going to use these tools to help identify where the two of you may have overlapping goals, interests, and motivations. Open-ended questions will help steer you in the right direction of revealing those overlaps. Open-ended questions are questions that enable exploration and curiosity so that we are able to learn more about someone's experiences, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and motivations. The key to open-ended questions can really be boiled down to avoiding limiting yourself and your conversation partner with like binary questions that revolve around two options, like avoiding yes or no questions, avoiding questions that limit them to up or down, this or that, in or out. Those are the kinds of binary questions that really restrict our ability to learn. Instead, lean on questions that start with who, what, where, when, how, why. One sticky note that I like to keep in my brain for one-on-ones is the reminder that every time I feel like I need to make a statement to inform someone, correct someone, even offer someone my advice, instead, I try to think of a question that I can ask in that moment. Active listening will be necessary for you to pick up on those overlaps and to know which questions to ask. And the other A, affirming statements, are important for validating the perspective of your conversation partner and encouraging their efforts to take action. These are important for affirming someone's strengths, abilities, and even their struggles. Affirming statements might sound something like, sounds like you really care about that, or maybe sounds like you're really doing your best to ... Reflection statements will make sure that you and your conversation partner are on the same page and that you're both seeing the overlaps and potential to work together as allies. It's important to reflect on both the content of what someone is sharing with you, but also your own observations. Reflecting on your own observations might sound like, I noticed that your voice fell when you started talking about that. Can you tell me more about your feelings around this? While reflecting on the content someone shares with you, you might sound like, that sounds like such an exciting opportunity you were given. Or some reflection statements might do a little bit of both and sound something along the lines of, based on what you're sharing with me, it seems like we both care about ... And finally, the last portion of your meeting, when you're wrapping up your time together, is all about invitations and inclusion. Based on the overlaps that you've spotted and reflected on, thanks to your open-ended questions and active listening, you're going to invite your conversation partner to join you in taking action on behalf of Civic Health in whatever way makes sense to them. Maybe it's ordering their own badge. Maybe it's taking one of the bulk badges that you've already ordered on behalf of the institution and putting it to good use. Maybe it's becoming a champion of Civic Health within their department. Maybe it's helping to identify administrative allies who can institutionalize the work on a more formal level. And there are so many more examples that I don't necessarily have the time to list right now for ways that folks can be included in this work. Of course, in order to grow our snowflake, we can't miss inviting them to extend an invitation of their own to other potential allies that they know of. And I say both of these things with the caveat that we do them in a way that is respectful of the autonomy of every person and their right to self-determination when it comes to the extent to which they want to engage in our work. Not everyone's going to be a Civic Health champion, and that's okay. We don't want to force or coerce anyone into saying yes to something that isn't aligned with their self-interest in this moment. And self-interest fluctuates over time. So we can always come back to folks at a later date, maybe after we've recruited a few more allies to add to our peer pressure. And that said, even with respect to their autonomy, don't shy away from inviting someone to join you out of fear of rejection or them saying no. We are not asking for a favor. We are extending an opportunity. When you invite someone to take action on behalf of Civic Health, don't ask them for a favor. Extend an opportunity. This is an incredible opportunity that you are offering for someone to expand their patient services to be more comprehensive and supportive of positive health outcomes in a way that also has benefits for them as a provider and for our communities at large. We shouldn't withhold this kind of opportunity from anybody who has dedicated their life to healthcare and/or human services. Okay, so that's enough about one-on-ones. What about the other major activity that helped to grow the team at USF? Those presentations at Grand Rounds, made a huge difference in the progress and exponential growth of their team, which is a great real-life example of how presentations are an awesome way to expand the reach of your work and generate more potential allies to have one-on-ones with. And the good news is that we don't expect you to invent or reinvent the wheel when it comes to giving presentations in any setting. Grand rounds, noon conferences, staff meetings, pitching to administrators, whatever it is. Our colleagues at Vot-ER have put together these incredible rinse and repeat resources that you can grab, you can use them as is, or you can edit them to fit your needs or the culture of your institution. So not only do you not have to make a presentation from scratch, but you can also hand over the baton at any point to your colleagues across the institution so that they can start presenting to new audiences of potential allies, or can just give you a break so that you don't feel like you're the only one who is growing the work. Like Bianca said, we're stronger when we work together and we can get a whole lot farther, like our champions at USF showed us. So as we bring our segment to an end, I wanted to show you a couple of examples of the presentations that are available to you and which you can make a copy of and edit to fit your needs. One example is this slide deck that can be used in a lot of different settings to introduce Vot-ER to colleagues and leaders at an institution. They even come with the speaker notes included for each slide, so convenient. And one of the phenomenal civic health champions at Duke University just used this to make a version of a presentation that was best suited for his colleagues to present to their new conference. In addition to the slide deck about Vot-ER and our tools, we also have an additional civic engagement and health slide deck that can be used to present more exclusively on the link between health, voting, social determinants of health, and structural determinants of health. And just like with the first slide deck that I showed you, speaker notes are included, and you're welcome to make a copy and edit these to suit your needs as well. And you can even combine the two. I've done that before. And the best part of these resources that I'm showing you is that both of them, along with a lot of other resources, are all available right from Vot-ER's website. So you don't have to go digging through your emails from this conference or reach out to someone and wait for them to get back to you in order to track down the slide deck that you want to use for presenting to your own department meeting. The last thing we want to do is hold you back from your own progress, since I know that you're all going to walk away from this conference feeling inspired to take action immediately after an exciting 2 days together. So from the main page on our website, you can simply click on the resources tab from the top menu, and then again, click on resources from the drop-down box to access these slides, along with a few other helpful resources. With that said, may you all take these resources and this information and go into the world and find allies in every corner of your workplaces. Have many one-on-ones and make an impact that's bigger than you had ever even dreamed of when you first stepped into this work. With that note to wrap us up, I'm going to hand the stage back over to Bianca so that she can introduce you to the speakers that we'll be hearing from next.
Thank you so much for that incredible presentation, Chelsea. I hope that after that session, you all feel confident that this civic engagement work is something that is best done with a good support system, and that you took away a lot of knowledge and tools and tips and tricks to take back to your institutions to help you build out some really strong teams.